Hello, and welcome to Forget What You Learned, a place for families to stop and reflect on the modern state of education. We empower you to challenge your own thinking about today's traditional school system and ask the question, are my kids thriving? I'm Cory Greenberg, a parent in the trenches just like you, and I chat with innovators, experts, and other parents who are changing the conversation, inspiring families to reevaluate how we define academic success. This podcast is brought to you by Pacific Preparatory and Tutor Corps, sister organizations molding education through innovative one-on-one learning for students in today's digital world. In today's episode, I'm joined by two guys with 30 plus years of experience in the education world. And together, they run a little school in the Los Angeles area that is truly progressive, truly cutting edge in its approach to learning. Hahn and Jon Cassie dive into what makes the Qualia School an intellectual playground, as they call it. Their mission is to raise adults capable of critical thinking and problem solving, fit for the needs of today's modern job market, as well as to equip them to be fulfilled, self-reflective people. They argue that the pace of social, cultural, technological change we live with necessitates this focus on deeper learning and critical thinking, so that in Jon's words, we aren't stuck with adults totally incapable of charting their own course. Check it out. Well, hello, and welcome to today's episode. Not to build it up too much, but get ready to have your mind blown a little bit. My guests today are Jon Cassie and Hahn, seasoned educators who not only run a little independent school that is on the cutting edge of modern education, but have been talking about a seismic paradigm shift in the whole system for years now. They have some things to say about how we've evolved as a society in terms of the right way to educate our youth, what's actually wrong with it, and in a refreshing twist, how to course correct. Without further ado, let me give you a little background. An inveterate explorer of knowledge, ideas, contraptions, and cultures, Jim has taught everything from philosophy to chemistry to Rube Goldberg machines during his 30-year career in education. As the co-founder of Qualia, the School for Deeper Learning, Jim is bringing his renowned cutting-edge educational model to a new level with his democratic educational philosophy, unique teaching and mentoring approach, and innovative deep learning curriculum. His partner in crime, Jon Cassie, co-founded Qualia after serving in virtually every teaching and leadership capacity schools have to offer over the past 25 years. He's published multiple books on role-playing and game-based learning, hosts 2 podcasts about education, and has presented at conferences and forums on learning across the globe. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Cory.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're delighted to be here.
Well, I wanted to start actually with what magic is actually happening at Qualia. I came across Qualia in my role with Pacific Preparatory. I just recognized some similarities in the way that we both talk about truly learner-centered education.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, you have a page on your website called the Qualia Vibe. And I was wondering if one of you wanted to kick us off with, what is the school? What's the Qualia Vibe?
I think that it's really important when you look at a school for, if you're looking for your child or for yourself, and this really goes for looking at jobs. I think culture is super important, and I think it's really the thing that makes or breaks an experience for people. And Jon and I, for example, work with juniors and seniors on college counseling, and it takes a little while to get people past the brand name and the sort of accoutrement that we're accustomed to thinking is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we really wanted to have a place that wasn't just different in its programs, but was also different in the way it felt to be here as a teacher or a learner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we do the small seminars, because you can have, I think it's just human nature that you can let your hair down a little bit and be more authentic and maybe take a couple risks in a smaller group that we're just sort of programmed in that way. So I think keeping the class size really small, which we've been able to do by sort of careful economics of running an independent school, and also keeping the relationships. I think there's a warmth and even a casualness. But there's still respect, and in both directions, so that we all get called by our first name. John is John, not Dr. Cassie.
Yep.
And the kids understand that respect is not just an algorithm for using honorific language with certain people. It's something that they're expected to show each other, and that we as adults need to earn and re-earn from them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So there's a playfulness, there's a warmth, there's an unabashed kind of willingness to be openly passionate, which has become crucial to me, and it's something that I don't see a lot of anywhere in the adult or kid world. We all try to tamp down our passions and act sarcastic and throw a lot of irony around and that sort of thing. Yeah. And our kids have this kind of authentic freshness that people see when they come here. And I think that's really, to their credit, it's a culture that, when we started 15 years ago, that group of kids created and passed on, and we've been able to nurture that and to keep it going.
Yeah. 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 I mean, authenticity is really the word, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Our students are driven by those things that they love. And we create a framework in which we can learn democratically by giving them far more voice than other schools give students, right? Mm-hmm. And sort of flexing and flowing from that.
Yeah.
Right? So students are authentic in their interests. I describe our faculty as polymathic. Our faculty can and do teach multiple things. And that's what students want. They want to see us jazzed and passionate about what we're passionate about. And that generates that kind of flow so that the vibe is what we say, look, we're like an intellectual playground for passionate learners. That's what we're trying to build. Most days we can see it, right? Not every day, most days. And we're proud of that. And I think kids like being part of that.
So some kids, I mean, this is human nature. We're not all going to show up our best selves. And probably you have kids that may show up one day and they're maybe not ready to learn. But in a traditional school system, that's not really honored or even acknowledged, really. It's not very human-centered. And what you're describing sounds like, you're recognizing like the whole person first in everything they bring to the table. And then just by doing that, it then allows these kids to explore with a little more freedom and authenticity. Am I getting that right?
We'll take that even further, Cory, and say that if you're not doing that, no real learning is happening.
Yeah.
It's just a sort of pantomime of learning at best. And so they absolutely, every kid needs to be seen, every kid needs to be heard, and everybody needs to be allowed to have a day and then we encourage this, where they say, hey, I'm not feeling it, I'm having a hard time. And we don't say, well, be aware that you'll lose your 12 participation points. Because we know the kids are generally not just partners in their own education, but really driving it. If you need to take a first period off because you have a migraine or you're having a hard day, we flex to that, and we don't have any kids that abuse that.
Yeah, nobody abuse that. So that's the point.
Yeah,
right, because they don't want to. They want to be there. Yeah.
SEL is not the frosting on the cake. It is essential to the deeper learning.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. One of our guidelines, one of our kind of community norms, if you will, is be authentic. Don't be performative. Right.
Hmm.
And a student in a school that cares more about high stakes tests, worksheets, filled with faculty who believe that if they just talk long enough, teachings happen. No, learning hasn't necessarily, but teaching has taken place, right? It's all about being performative, right?
Yeah.
The great book, Excellent Sheep, written a number of years ago by the admissions dean at Yale. What is he saying? He's saying so many students graduating from high school these days, all they do is performative, right? So they get to university and they don't know how to be a university student. So they apply the rules that they used when they were high school students, and that works. The problem then is that they become 30-year-olds in law or medicine or some other high stakes profession, and they have no idea who they are or why they're there or anything.
Yeah, and they're not prepared for the workforce. So that's something
Right.
that we've talked about on this podcast before. It's like, our traditional K-12 system is based on the factory model,
Yeah.
where, like you're saying, it's very standardized, and that was what needed to happen back then.
Right.
But now, we're trying to raise these like creative, independent thinkers, but the school system hasn't caught up to that.
No, it's nowhere near it, right? One of the things that I say to parents all the time when they're exploring us as a place, right, is I'll say, how old's your kid? When was your kid born? Oh, they're 12, so they were born in 2011. Great. Okay. I said, look, we care about your kid now, and we care about your student when they are going to go to college, but your young person has a very long life ahead of them, and we care as much about them at 50 as we do when they're 15. So what does that mean? That means that your kid will be 50 in the year 2061. And you just name it. You just put the date out there. And the parents, their eyes goggle, right? Because they never thought about that, right? It's like your grandchildren will be at work in the 22nd century. You know that, right? They haven't thought about that.
Right.
I said, we care about that. So what does that mean? We're committed to critical thinking and deeper learning because without it, you're just going to be blown away by the pace of social change and cultural change and technological change and change, right? You think it's going to get less changey? Get a grip, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to get more. And the only thing that will make the difference in our judgment is deeper learning, critical thinking. This is why we teach philosophy. This is why we teach in small seminars. This is why we privilege student voice. Every single thing that we do is mindful of the fact that if we don't do it, we will graduate adults incapable of charting their own course. And we are not interested in sending young people into the world to be blown into oxbows and side streams and God knows what, right? We want them to chart their own path.
So let me ask you a question, because this is the part that still for me is hard to conceptualize. And I think for a lot of parents. So I understand the commitment to this deeper learning and following kids' passions. So what if you have a kid who is more, humanities leaning, like they're just not that interested in the STEM fields? And what does that look like? Or do we need to let go of the idea that they need some kind of uniform, basic grasp of all of the maths and all of the sciences? Like, if this kid is never going to go into a field in STEM, is it okay? Do we need to give ourselves permission to say, just focus on what you're good at and you like?
I think that
a great question.
That concept that we are forcing the humanities kid to take math, or that we're forcing the STEM kid to take English, really comes from having seen kids, who up to a certain point haven't had a certain passion, being put into a classroom situation with a pedagogy that is not responsive to their interests and who they are. And while it is true that we have kids who like math. Some of our kids like math more than others.
Yep.
The way that we do math, the way that it's discussion based, the way that it's puzzle based, I would say we have a higher than average percentage of kids who say, I actually do like math.
Mm-hmm.
Math's a hard one because there's so much trauma that comes from
Right.
being bad at it, so much sort of
Right.
public humiliation, et cetera, that kids, it kind of depends on when kids join us, but if they're joining us in high school, they're probably more entrenched in their self-concept of being bad mathematicians.
Indeed.
Sometimes, if you're doing math without symbols or numbers, but it's more sort of about abstract thinking, which when you get into higher math, it tends to be the case. We incorporate a lot of that in the math that we do even at the lower levels. So not because it gives, different learners different opportunities to succeed, but it happens to do that. We just think it's cool and it's neat.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be locked into the pretty arbitrary sequence of how math is taught elsewhere. So we do an integrated math. So it's not do a year of algebra, then spend a year forgetting your algebra while you do geometry, and then discover in 11th grade that you can't do algebra 2 or chemistry. So we're doing a lot of work on math curriculum, and there's a lot of attention not just to the kids who thrive in a math classroom, but kids who don't or have those fears.
Yeah.
It's an easier place to talk about those fears. It's an easier place to have that addressed. It's also an easier place to fail and bounce back. Yeah. And part of our job is to explicitly teach kids to be in situations that are not, where maybe the subject isn't their preferred subject. There's still English class. There's still chemistry class here. Yeah. And how to cope with that, how to sort of have the skills to work with the teacher and the group. And we're always looking for, what's this kid's role going to be in this small community of 5 or 7 or, at 9, that's a big class and the teachers go on strike. So we don't go.
So, okay. So then to drill this down more, so for the kid who maybe comes in with that math trauma, which, I understand that a lot, but for a kid who comes in with that and they're very resistant to taking that math class, like what do you do? What do you do with that?
Well, first of all, we say, can you be open to the idea that you might like math here? And they may begrudgingly, just to, get us out of their hair, say yes. Yeah. But also the teachers that we have, especially at sort of those fundamental levels, the middle school math and the sort of algebra 1, pre-algebra, we're doing things, you'll find when it's not too hot or too cold here, which is about 2 months of the year. You're in Texas. We complain in Calabasas. 107. When it's not 107, you'll find them outdoors doing things. There was a graphing exercise that was on the basketball court. So the XY axes were the size of the entire half court. And there were kids out there standing at different points. There was a kid at 2'3" and a kid at 5'7". Right. And so we're doing things to bring it to life in a way where it's very hard to just zone out and be resistant. Yeah. The more we can use manipulatives in math and science, I teach chemistry, and we really upped our manipulative game this year. Yeah. We had these kits where instead of balancing equations, for example, on paper, you were moving actual atoms around in front of you, which changes things interestingly. Yeah. So there are a lot of, some of this may seem like sort of quick and cheap things, but a lot of the things that are quick and cheap can make a big difference because they change the feeling of the classroom for a kid who's bringing some trauma. They're open. They say, "Oh, wait a minute, we're outdoors. Something different is happening here. Oh, wait a minute, I'm moving things around in front of me and playing a game." We do a lot of game-based education with John's background, obviously. Yeah. So we're doing our best to kind of get that. And the kids have writing trauma too. There's the flip side.
Yeah.
That's where I was
only want to do math, and that's a challenge, and it's not conquered in one conversation or in one semester. And we're able with the small school community and small classes to again individualize, to directly address that instead of just having the kid bang his head against the same wall over and over again.
Right.
We get right in there under the hood and figure out what needs to be done there.
Exactly.
We'll bring in, if there's the possibility of bringing in an outside educational therapist, we might do that. If it's super traumatic, we'll talk to a psychological therapist to support. So we're building teams around these things when they're when they're really severe. But yeah, sure, we have our humanities kids and we have our STEM kids, and but we have a lot of kids that straddle that, or we have kids. Usually it's philosophy kids who thought they were strictly STEM kids who discover, wait a minute, philosophy is also using that logical part of our brain, but in a sort of creative way as well. So we have kids who go to college and major in, just had a young man come back from Berkeley and he's finishing double major in physics and philosophy, which is going to create such an interesting mind.
Totally.
So we have a lot of philosophy minors and majors out there in various colleges.
Yeah.
That was me. I went to college never even considering philosophy and took an intro class and I was hooked. And, I think that it's one of those subjects. I love that you're teaching that to younger students because they're ready for the big conversations. And again, there's not space for it in our traditional system, which is, that's the nagging thing. Like when I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, okay, but how do we scale Qualia? Like, how do you bring this model that is so individualized? Is there a way, to get into our public system and reach the masses with what you're talking about?
Yeah, tricky, right? Okay, because what we do is the most expensive way to do it, right? Yep. And it requires teachers who have a different mindset about what teaching is and what learning is than we received as kids, right? And it requires bureaucracies that are slow to pivot, to take risks, right? Cory, we talked a little bit in the sort of the pre-show about a story that I've told about how long an educational generation is, right?
Yes, please tell that story.
And the challenge to educational change is that really there's only ever been one. The late 1800s, the sort of Horace Mann, the Prussian model, right, coming into this country, replacing if you're elite and white and rich, you get to go to basically a church school and learn Latin and learn how to be a gentleman, but everything else is not for you, right? So why is it hard? Because education as a profession is conservative as an industry, right? Why? Because the generations are so long. How do you know? I graduated from high school in 1986. My oldest teacher began her career in the Franklin Roosevelt administration, right? She retired in 1986 after a 40-year career. Great, good for her, right? But I am nevertheless influenced by her because I was taught by her, right?
Yep.
I am now 55. So let's say I retire at 70, okay? The last student I would teach would therefore be in 2037, okay? That person will be alive, working, and well in the 22nd century. So an education generation, the first influence to the last influence, right, runs 1944 to 2105. Okay?
Yeah, that's mind-blowing.
Radically long periods of time, right? And fear about changing things, well, what if you get it wrong? Well, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means, right? But it makes it difficult to take progressive or non standard, right, batch processing, factory model kinds of schools, and to do different things with them, right?
Yeah.
Our colleagues are trying, right? In many schools, right? A dear friend of ours is the principal of a elementary school in the Santa Monica Malibu school district, and he says, and he's a progressive. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to do what you're talking about. He says stuff I could do at my former school in a week. is going to take 5 years, or
Right.
maybe it's not achievable because the systems don't allow it. So we
Right.
need to change the way that we educate adults about what they value about education. And we do this work all the time with our parents because our
Mhm.
parents were educated like us.
Yep.
Right? What
Yep.
do they know about progressive education, right? They know that what's on offer at their local public or at their local independent school that's got 150 years of history. They know that both of those aren't right for their kid. So they come and talk to us. But the parents are traumatized by their own
Yes.
education and by struggling with finding a fit for their kid. So we help them walk through that. So what do I think? I think it's a matter of building a network of schools like Qualia in every city of size in the country, so that there's someone in the city saying, you could think about it this way. You could think about it this way, right?
Yeah.
And we would love to do that work with larger schools, and we appreciate that that there are economic and logistical
Yep.
challenges to scaling up.
Yep.
But there are things that we do that we really dive into because we're able to get away with it as a small school. We're right now in the middle of something called Symposium,
Right.
which is twice a year instead of final exams. We do a student-led academic conference. It's based around a theme that the students, we spend sometimes a couple hours with the kids because they care so much about it, vetting and voting and revising. The current theme is the hidden and or concealed.
Yeah.
And so these themes are broad enough that when they do their piece of scholarly work, the first week is researching, they write. In the process, we're teaching them how to cite sources, do MLA citations and text citations, all this stuff that they later thank us for when they're in college. And so that we have this broad theme, and it means that you can have as many different interesting topics as there are kids, which we currently have.
Yes.
And it's enormously gratifying because I can walk down the hallway and there's one kid who's doing something on the hidden algorithms in mathematics that determine how competing businesses decide how far apart they should place themselves from each other, which I could never. It's a killer topic. It's super interesting. It involves game theory and all this stuff. I could never have generated that for this child, right?
Yeah.
He likes math and he likes business. I kind of like math, and my dad offered me $500 to take an economics class, and I considered it money well spent to not do it in college. But he's gotten me into economics because under, again, this rubric of the hidden or concealed, he found his place to hook onto it.
Yeah.
We have a kid who is talking about dread and why dread is the worst kind of fear. And in looking into that, he's reading Freud's essay on the uncanny and complaining a lot about the way Freud drops German terms and has to look them up.
Right.
Because not all scholars speak German anymore.
Right.
And so, creating, here's my point. I would say that you take what we do 4 weeks out of the year. If I were a public school principal constrained by budget and class size and all of that, I would require the faculty to take 1 day a month devoted to something where the energy for the assignment comes from the students and where they have that choice and voice. Start there, right? And if you need, in order to get them the sort of mentoring that they need, you bring in community members. You have a ton of educated people that would love to talk to a kid. You could probably find a guy that knows something about business, and Dawson would have a better mentor than me.
We do our best.
Bring in college students. We bring in our alumni to help mentor with Symposium. So there are little things that could be done that would obviously, as John said, require some flexibility in the culture and some openness to. It's messy, right? It's a little messier. I'm not. It's not like I'm conducting an orchestra in my mind anyway, and I'm telling then the kids move over here, then they all do this, and everybody smiles, right? It's just kids get stuck. Every morning we do kind of a roster of who's stuck and who's freaking out. And we sort of disperse to help those kids or assign them to another kid who can pull them out of that. But in the end, when you have this work that is truly, truly driven by the kids' passion and energy, it's something to behold. And my favorite time of year is what's happening next week, which is where there are a couple of days where they are taking some part of what they've learned, bringing it to life for the broader community, meaning parents, sometimes siblings, sometimes they bring friends in, teachers. And they really get that opportunity, not just to be an expert on something and spout knowledge, but to make other people think. That's the sort of the next gauntlet the next mountain they need to climb. You've written something, you know a lot about it, you've thought about it, you've argued a thesis. How can you have the rest of us get a little taste of what it was like for you to be struggling with this interesting problem or question? So I think that could be scaled up. It wouldn't be easy, and you'd have to have a lot of brain power in the room to do it. But it's an experiment we'd love to do with a larger school.
It's like the Google X Day kind of thing, right? Where 10% of them Google's employees' work is you're doing your jam, right? We call that, we use the word aporia here on campus to describe that kind of kismet kind of you're learning something and then we'll see what comes of it.
Exploration where you're not sure what's around the corner, and that's okay.
Which is, and the word with the bulbs that's flashing in my brain as you're talking, Jim, is standards. It's moving away from this idea that there's a standard for the outcome of the learning. What you're describing is not really measurable. There's not a test with numbers at the end of it to evaluate, like, what did this kid learn and what did he take away from it. But if you're in it, I imagine it is very clear what these kids are taking away. But again, on a bigger scale, the question of like how to somehow, standardize or move away from standardizing, but still have some kind of, I don't know what the word is, but a way to distribute equity. Like if there's schools that aren't attracting great teachers, or it's in a rough neighborhood and there's kids that are coming in with like lots of just personal stuff going on, like how do we elevate the school experience for everyone without some kind of standard to evaluate it? But then that's like inherently the problem too.
There's this kind of issue of measurement. It's almost like you can't measure the once you start looking at electrons, they don't perform the same, right? And so I think measurement creates the problem, a lot of the problems that we're talking about here. And that being said, every year, I think consistently, as far back as I can remember, we've had a kid get 1,600 on the SAT. And it's not because we were doing the magical, Common Core formula to have them get that, amazing outcome on this infallible instrument. It's just because they're learning to reason, problem solve, especially think clearly, and they're not doing it by repeatedly taking a sort of semi-valid or probably externally invalid test over and over again. They're not practicing from grade 1 to ace the SAT. They do it anyway. So I find that perfectly validating. It's not validating in a currency that I respect, or that the kids who get 1,600 respect. It's almost embarrassing. Like, Jim, I got 1,600. I give him a big pat on the back, and I said, "That's great." And I also really loved that big paper you did on why Wendy's and McDonald's, can only be close to each other. Not that close. So it's never going to be. We have kids that are really good at that stuff, but it's never going to be the thing they're most proud of. Nor should it be, because it's impressive, but there are a lot more impressive things and a lot of things that will stand them in better stead in college and graduate school if they choose to go, or life than bubbling, right? And so I think there's just sort of a big thicket of issues that that stem from that question that you're asking is as well. Okay, that, that's all fine and dandy, but how do you measure that on a standardized scale? We'd be happy to have our kids go up against any other sort of more conventional private school in a test that actually tested critical thinking,
Yeah.
the ability to argue.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the skills that they need, as we already discussed, like
Right.
in actual life, So maybe that is kind of the answer is like you were saying earlier, John, doing what you're doing at Qualia on a smaller scale, and then trying to network and build the number of schools that are trying to replicate that, and then those schools being the thought leaders and changing the minds of the parents. I mean, that's literally why we're doing this podcast aimed at parents, to just
Right.
get them to ask the questions and like examine their own, like you said, educational trauma and what they really want for their kids. And yeah, that's it.
Cory, to the point, right? This, if this is going to gain purchase in a public context, it's not going to be in Houston Unified or in LAUSD because they're too big, right? But there are small towns within an hour of you that have a high school with 300 kids and a middle school and an elementary school. Those schools could have us come and talk to them tomorrow, and we could do the whole thing, and they could adopt it, right? If they wanted to, right? So my hope is that parents listening will say, that sounds interesting. Let's call those guys up and see what they might be able to help us with, right? You get a public district that has the means and the will to make the change. That's the only reason the Horace Mann thing happened anyway, right?
Yeah.
You had cities and towns in Massachusetts and places that had a deep, centuries-long commitment to education say, this is not right. We can't sustain. We have to change.
Right.
We got to do something,
Right.
right? Okay, you could try this, right? I put our public metric, where do our students who are graduating go to school? I'll put that up against anyone, okay? Here's the students who are graduating this year. They are going to California State University, Northridge for film, okay, because it's a great film program. They're going to Vassar, an elite liberal arts college. They're going to Willamette, another elite liberal arts college. One is in the east, one's in the west. Bennington, quirky liberal arts, right? In Vermont, right? And MIT. Okay?
Yep.
And these students have done no tests. They have not done homework the way that it's understood by everyone else. They have been in classes that are driven by their passions, taught by teachers who are driven by their passions. And they've had opportunities to be in individualized kind of things or in classes that are, by our standards, large. 10 students is large for us. But 10 would be small for a small public high school. They would have 10. Our numbers overlap at that limit, at that extreme, right? You could do it. And then you could see. But what would you have to do? You'd have to say, the standards movement, which is trying to solve a problem, is well-intentioned, but it's the wrong road.
Yeah, it's
So
the wrong solution.
We're going to back up and we're going to take the other road, okay? And we're going to make a commitment to critical thinking. So we're not going to make a commitment to math standards. This is excellent radio, by the way. I'm friends at home. I'm air quoting. Okay, we're not going to do that because that is not what you need. What you need is the capacity to think about anything you care about. And once you say to a kid, what's your jam? Every 9-year-old has a jam.
Yep.
Okay. It might mean you need to hire more teachers. It might mean that you need to change the way that your building is set up. If so, make a commitment to young people. Stop devoting all of your public resources to you, old people. Think about your children and your grandchildren. And more importantly, think about the children and grandchildren in your local community. I don't have any children of my own, right? I want to spend more money on schools. Why? Because I want to live in an educated society. I don't want to be interacting every day with people who can't think at all. Who wants that?
Right.
And if it means that I pay a little extra for the local public school to which I don't send any children and which I have no connection with, fantastic. If they wanted to do that in my local district, I would pay them even more, right?
Yeah.
Someone has to try it, right?
Well,
this is why progressive breaks down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, John Dewey was talking about this, Maria Montessori, all these people, they're all talking about it, right? But there's a timidity that I understand about taking a risk, okay, and spending more money, because that's what it's going to take.
Well, guys, this leaves me actually feeling hopeful, which again is the point of this podcast too. It's not just to peel back the layers and see what's wrong and rotten underneath the hood. It's like, what do we do about it? So I feel like this conversation is really another example of a solution that is going to take, it's going to take time, and it's going to take exposure and, people following in your footsteps around the country. But again, that's the point of me, talking to people who are out there doing the work. So we could go on, I feel like, forever and ever, but I think it is time to wrap up. And what we're going to do, we always end with this lightning round. Okay. And now this is actually extra challenging because it's two of you. So you just be ready. So we'll just go. Yeah. You just got to be like quick on the draw. So ready? Here we go. Okay. Here comes your lightning round. I want to know, what's your favorite education or parenting book that everyone needs to read?
Anything at all by Alfie Kohn, because he hits the same notes in different ways in the different works. So take your pick, whichever title you like the best. We reread him with our parents this year. They loved it. They were like, "Oh, that's what you guys are doing."
Oh, we get it now. I'll say anything by Ken Robinson.
Sure.
Okay, Alfie Kohn.
And the book that I'm looking at right now on my shelf is called Out of Our Minds. It's about creativity.
Okay. Well, and what was the sheep one that you mentioned earlier? Say that one again. Something
Excellent
about
sheep.
Excellent sheep. That's a good title.
You're going to have to look up the spelling of it's William Deresiewicz.
Okay.
Yes, and I don't know how to spell it off the top of my head.
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes so people can find it.
Fantastic book.
Yeah. Okay. What do you all do in your free time?
I like cooking with my wife, and lately, like now that I've stopped resisting YouTube as a new technology, I have I've been watching. I have a favorite Mexican food guru who's grandmother in the state of Michoacan. It's all in Spanish subtitles, and I figure that's straight from the source. And then I also have a favorite Thai food person. And so I like getting really into the nerdy ingredients, many of which you have to order on Amazon or drive to some part of the city that you didn't ever know existed, and find somebody to help you through the freezer section.
I love that.
Cooking, but cooking with this sort of nerdy twist to it.
Right.
Okay.
Tabletop gaming.
Oh, yeah.
Board games, card games, role-playing games.
Mm-hmm.
I play video games, but my jam is tabletop games.
Okay. Love it. What do children need more of in one word?
Trust.
Challenge.
Ooh, okay. Together, trust and challenge. Okay. Yeah. What's your favorite feel-good song?
I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. Do you know The Way to San Jose?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good one.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Basically anything from that Warwick Burt Bacharach canon.
Mm-hmm.
What the World Needs and I Was Love, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. That's such a sentimental one. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. If you could summon anything to your desk, like with a magic button, what would it be?
I'll give a sort of not very qualia answer, right? Jim will give a qualia answer, right? I'll say an endless supply of Coke Zero.
Okay.
I would ask for a perpetual summoning device.
Uh-huh. I know. That's the genie, I'd wish for more wishes answer.
I'll ask for a wish generating device. Right.
Exactly. I think we asked this on our team and someone said, a butler. And it's like, oh yes, if I had a butler, they could just bring me anything I wanted at any time. So
omnipotent butler.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Well,
Cory, this has been great.
Super fun.
This has been just lovely. I knew you two would be a hoot. I knew that we would get deep in our conversation quickly, and that's what happened. And I think that anyone who has listened to this episode is better for having heard what you had to say. So thank you
so
for
much.
coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hope to have an opportunity to be on, next season, the season after.
I see. Well, we'll see how this one goes. We'll see if people listen.
Yeah. If you get review bombed, then, we'll understand when the invitation doesn't come.
Okay. Well, stay tuned for that, everyone. We'll see if Jim and Jon can make a comeback in season 2.
Thanks, Cory.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Forget What You Learned, hosted by me, Cory Greenberg. As always, our goal is to allow you to zoom out on the snapshot of your family's life and answer the question, are my kids thriving? We're here to inspire you to make those small and maybe big changes to answer yes. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pacific Preparatory and Tutor Corps, sister organizations committed to educating students with an innovative and holistic approach in today's digital world. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a rating and review. See you next time.